Do it from exponential potential to not being able to pay for the rental or even a bill from the dental. The house, that for your mental. I've been through hard times too. The situation demand I bring the hard rhymes through. That's why I'm all times too.
My nervous system, the final frontier. These are the voyages of my moth-eaten brain. It's 5-round mission. Play a fucking game right. Seek out new edge cases in the FAQ. And timidly go where almost every half-competent solo gamer in the world has easily gone. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is back on the table.
Okay. Get back, get that, bitch, I'm a rough that. Get no back, hold the price of success. Do they suck? Yes, I think they better let it go. Side of your roar, baby. Welcome to the murder show. It's the Mr. Fabulous Drifter, twisted.
Welcome to episode 112 of Breakup Gaming Society. I'm your host, the Colonel Hector Bravado in Starkville, Colorado. I journal my life through the lens of tabletop play, then I tack on vintage hip-hop track recommendations, because sure, why not? Here's what's worth playing in March 2026. Games of the Week. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, 2024's big hit about managing a space agency that's looking for hard evidence of somebody out there. I tried this weighty Euro-style game this winter in solo mode for the first time, and I messed it up so badly you could say I hadn't played it at all. I revisited this busy resource management adventure twice and got a clear view. Notes on that. Then, the Fantasy Flight Games Golden Age Retrospective series continues. I interviewed Shelf Stable podcast co-host Kenny Katayama about his perspective on this unbelievable string of seminal titles. In particular, his experience with several of the flagship living card game titles they issued late in this glory run. Track of the Week. If you grab your LinkedIn connections list by the neck and squeeze it real good, sometimes something worthwhile falls out. Nah, I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about Cordless Mics at 20 Paces by DJ Skitz featuring Phi-Life Cypher, which was recommended to me by my UK pal, Tim Sismey. Finally starting to get some value out of this goddamn platform. This track is tight, and these dudes rapped their asses off. Tim's gonna show us how this song fit into his life and the story of early 2000s UK hip-hop. But first, here comes Games of the Week.
Bitch, I kicked it, yup, I kicked it. Come on, you couldn't bang with this if your name was Genghis Khan.
SETI, Session Report 1.1. Good news, wrote one Redditor when I posted my first SETI play report on a board game sub. You have fundamentally misunderstood SETI and played a much worse game of your own invention instead of SETI, so you'll have more fun next time. Smiley face, end quote. They were right. Everything that puzzled me about the game's pace and action economy stemmed from a bad misreading of page 7 of the rulebook. I looked up similar questions about turns and rounds on Board Game Geek, and I still got it wrong. Essentially, I didn't realize that a round of the game will keep having turns as long as players still have something to do. I was giving myself and the bot a single turn each, then closing the round. This constricted the action to near nothingness. The turn baton was supposed to pass back and forth between players until all had taken the pass action that formally concluded a round. My misplay meant that I'd essentially played about 1/3 of a game despite logging 5 rounds. Not enough stuff happened. So here are my impressions from what I'm calling SETI First Play 1.1. My job in this heavy Euro space exploration game was to scale the ops of a space agency that is trying to make contact with aliens. Safe to say I failed that job. Reminds me of college when I once got a note along with a no-credit grade on a history paper from the professor, quote, "The assignment was to write a history paper considering original sources. I cannot give you a grade as you have managed to evade the enterprise entirely." So, with the catcalls from more experienced players ringing in my ears, I set the game back up on the easiest solo setting and walked it again. Here are my notes from that experience. I still say that this rulebook and the game system of iconography is generally excellent given the range of things to do and profusion of icons. During my first round of taking the correct amount of turns, I was looking up every little collision with the game's action. Every time I did it, I was rewarded with a new leap of insight into the layered system thinking evident in every piece and step. But it was still chewy enough of a learn where I had to bounce back and forth between that, their printed FAQ, and rules threads on Board Game Geek. From what I've seen, this is not an unusual experience. During this play, the Atoma and I triggered the appearance of the Oumuamua and the Anomalies, 2 of the 5 species you can find during play. Boy, what a speed bump that is for a player who's just getting his head around how to properly take moves, mark things, and trigger stuff, all while running the Atoma properly. Again, the rules are excellent, but my brain mirrors what it must be like in the boardrooms and control rooms of the agency that discovers these traces. Pandemonium that maxes out the allostatic load of your already busy staff. I still run into a couple confusing cul-de-sacs and have to take breaks. I already know I'm going to use these exact same pieces the next time I play because I don't want this procedural stretch of washboard road to include yet 2 more species with their own rules and pieces. It's just more than I want at this stage of my learning. I think in SETI I've probably found my uppermost tolerance for how much fuss I can tolerate in a game. A couple of years ago, I learned to embrace solo play, but looking back, the games I played the most were light, ranging up to chewy middleweights. SETI is a different order of ask, and while I'm enjoying the hard-won forward yardage, fatigue and exasperation are a factor. I also noted an interesting and incorrect assumption I had about how contact works inside the story of the game. The discoveries sit more inside a contemporary scientific world. And we're not talking about Independence Day here. The traces are real and verified, but that excitement does not, like I assumed, imply that spindly critters are walking down a gangway to give you a pound and start signing energy drink sponsorships. I appreciate the subtlety of the choice. Pardon me for zooming in on this, but how they portray the discovery of the anomalies is a perfect example. When aliens come out, so do new pieces and cards. One of these cards is an action that, in beautiful thumbnail fashion, tells us how to imagine contact in the world of the game. In the illustration, a child in a sandbox has made 3 concentric rings of sand and is playing with a small model of one of the anomalies while a frowning mother looks on with her arms crossed. I loved this touch. So, outcome. Take this number with a grain of salt, but when the dust settles, I have outscored the Atoma 121 to 107. Owing mostly to a nice bushel of points from the tucked income card set collection tile and an all-hands effort to drop a lander on Triton, one of Neptune's moons. Keep in mind that for learning purposes, I played this game without the scoring objectives, which is a solo option that puts extra pressure on your action choices, and it comes at 5 levels of difficulty. This is the real solo game. I was in training mode. When I'm learning something chunky, I like to take the option of as few elective complications as possible. I think the fact that I won, allowing for lingering areas where I'm still making mistakes, is likely a clear demonstration of just how easy a solo game is without the objectives. So next, I finished the match with a handful of lingering and annoying edge case rules questions, and also a sense of wonder and admiration for this game system, and, most importantly, an immediate desire to try it again. I'm about to tear it down and set it back up under the exact same conditions because there are some procedures I'm still shaky on. I'm giving myself the license to do this at my own pace. It's hard sometimes not to compare myself to all the tabletop media people out there who seem to inhale and crystallize whole mountains worth of cardboard every week. That ain't me, and that's okay. One of the things I find I like most about being a solo board gamer is the freedom to stare, stumble, and wander through a session without the anxiety of pacing, teaching, or generating immediate and decisive rulings for others. Isn't that the reason we do this anyway? To build a fort of our time that doesn't answer to the hellish speed of the world, or sometimes the hell of other people? Looking forward, there's only one big question, and that's what I call the wingspan criteria. I bought that smash hit from Stonemeyer a few summers ago to find out what the kids were up to and to challenge my regular biases when I'm shopping for a game. Of the solo games I've learned during that stretch of my solo career, Wingspan has more parallels with SETI than any of my other recent off-menu choices, although it was much easier to learn than this. I played Wingspan solo twice. It was one of the 40-odd games I gave away to a neighbor a few months ago. I liked Wingspan very much, but because I learn slowly and play what I learn obsessively, I knew by last year that there was no way Wingspan was going to contend with Pavlov's House, Thunderbolt Apache Leader, Vijaya Nagara, or Final Girl for table time. I'm wondering how SETI challenges this middleweight lineup. The fact that I'm excited to try it again is promising, and the challenge of slowing down to learn it has been an odd confidence booster. Look for more reports. Hell, maybe even a proper review in later episodes. Next, the retrospective of Fantasy Flight Games' Golden Age continues, this time with another new voice in the room. Kenny Katayama of the excellent Shelf Stable podcast, which he co-hosts along with his pal Tom Bowers. I highly recommend giving these cats a listen if you want witty and thoughtful explorations of games that didn't deserve to go down the memory hole. Kenny's a bit younger than me, so I was curious to hear how somebody would view the Fantasy Flight Glory Run, which, in my playing career, wrapped up around 2016. During our talk, I discovered that he had a lot broader experience than I did with Fantasy Flight's living card games. LCGs were their version of what a collectible card game looks like when you want to give players an exciting time of building custom decks to fight with, only you don't bleed them white with the casino card release strategy. My favorite Fantasy Flight LCG, and depending on how misty I'm feeling that day, perhaps my favorite game of any genre ever, was Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, the card game. I played it obsessively far after it got canceled just 2 years after its release. But Kenny, as it turns out, played a lot of them. Like the scholarly, curious dude he is, gave me his survey of what I missed while I was sweating over the composition of my Warhammer decks. That stretch of our talk went like this. How, if at all, did titles from this era, and when I say this era, I'm thinking, early 2000s till 2016, that Fantasy Flight would just had a knockout catalog, and we played so many. I was curious to know if anything from this era is like still a favorite of yours, or made an impression or an impact on you.
Yeah, there's a lot. The obvious one that really stands out, so maybe we can just get the elephant out of the room, is Android Netrunner. Android Netrunner got me to the next step in board gaming, which is to say, at that time I had gotten really into like Settlers of Catan and Dominion and all that, but really the game that sucked me in and consumed all my time and got me looking at other board games and other Fantasy Flight products was Netrunner. And pretty steadily throughout its existence, I was invested. I went to tournaments. I went to Minnesota to the World Championships, I think in 2017. Did terribly, but got to meet a bunch of great folks that, I only knew through the internet. Got to meet a lot of the Fantasy Flight employees. It was a great experience. It was a great community. Loved Netrunner. Just an amazing game.
I have to agree, and I've only played it twice. So the anchor of our group was a couple, and they were our couple best friends. As a matter of fact, after they moved away, I remember one weekend just turning to my wife and say, "Doesn't it feel like general quality of life dove 30% without them?" And she said, "Absolutely." Yeah. We were that tight, and the dude of the couple got really into Netrunner and came over with decks from the very first base set and walked me through a couple of games. Beautiful asymmetrical quality to it is what I remember. The way what a hacker will do versus its enemy, the corporation, is very different and has very different steps. I never played as a hacker because it was more difficult to run. So Jay would set up as a hacker, and I played 2 games as a Japanese corporation. And maybe you can remember the name.
Jinteki, yeah.
Yes, Jinteki. Yep.
Yeah, Jinteki's really interesting because a lot of the corporations are trying to keep the hacker out, but Jinteki's like, you can come in, you're just going to get messed up. You are going to get hurt. And so it's always that trade-off.
I had almost no idea what I was doing. It takes me a lot of reps to get any sort of strategy. I was just so overwhelmed with how hard for the first game, Jay just seemed able to just plunder anything he wanted. But I think by the second game, we sat down. I had a strategy that I think I called blinding cloud of bullshit, and I can't remember what it was, but I managed to spread my resources such that it made him harder. It made it harder for him to figure out what to go at. I can't remember whether it was like just investing and putting ice on everything, so that ice being the security layer you can invest in. But I think he tore that apart too, because like you, he was also going to tournaments, and he got me that base set as a way of kind of lure me in, and I liked it a lot, but not enough to sort of learn it on my own or come back to the table as his equal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big investment to keep up with it and functionally like know how to play at a competitive level. It's not just something that you play once in a while when you play other board games. And I think that was a big turnoff for a lot of folks who were already into board gaming. For me, it struck such a good chord that I was willing to put that investment in, but I totally understand why other folks were like, I respect this, I just don't want to play it necessarily.
Just from the limited vantage I got on the game is how beautifully the action and the theme meshed. It was really evocative.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
I sort of had that sense of feeling like I was in a very unhumorous boardroom far in the future, marshaling these resources, and the way the hacker comes at you, it just wafted up out of the cards. While I never quite understood all the action and the mechanics, I mean, Jay had to kind of walk me through almost everything I was doing, and then I think by the second game, I knew some things I wanted to do, but I still didn't know how. I think I would have liked to play a lot more, but I would have just had to have had somebody teaching me the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, and as you know, that one, in terms of the Fantasy Flight, I think they did the world a service with their living card game model.
Oh, totally. There's so many excellent living card games that came out of that model.
Mm-hmm. And it was another like minor tragedy of the era that there was a vibrant scene doing, as you know, Netrunner, and they canned it.
Yeah. It's still kind of a mystery why. Either they determined it wasn't worth the cost, or there was like an IP renewal issue or something. But it's really kind of unfortunate because they had something really solid there, but it just kind of came to a halt all of a sudden.
Have you kept tabs at all on the community made version? That people have revived it?
Yeah, I've played quite a bit of the community one. I think they're doing a really good job. Tom kind of disagrees. Tom is more of the opinion that they over-design, or sometimes they try to make too safe of a design. The problem is that a lot of the community has kind of dissipated. It used to be that we could pretty steadily go to events, or, have people coming weekly to play games and things like that. Those folks I still hang out with, but we just play other board games now. I think very much with the end of the Fantasy Flight Netrunner, we also got the end of the community to a certain extent. And there's a new community now. It's just mostly online based. The other thing is, like, even though they do an excellent job with the fan-based sets, in my opinion, the turnaround is a lot slower. You get a release of cards once every 6 months, roughly, if things are on schedule. Whereas with Fantasy Flight, you were getting a pack of cards every 1 to 2 months. So it's hard to keep excitement or to feel like the game is evolving and changing when there's less community support, and also there's fewer things coming out to keep you interested from week to week. The answer is yes, I've been keeping up, but it's not quite the same kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I experienced a parallel of that because I never was attracted at all to that style of game, the build your own deck and go 1v1 with it. It always looked too fussy, too intense, too subscription oriented. but the big part missing for me was theme. And I don't really care about cartoon Japanese monsters or planeswalkers, whatever those are, or the fact that for some reason now you can play a Magic deck that has Space Marines and Doctor Who in it, and
yes, we're in the Fortnite era of Magic the Gathering.
But that all changed for me when, and again, Fantasy Flight here, and lead designer Eric Lang, who also did Chaos in the Old World. They rolled out Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, and that was when I decided to give that style of game a try, and it was absolutely foreign to my brain. But I think I got it. I got my base sets the year the game got canceled. I think they launched it in 2014, and it got canned in 2016 because Games Workshop
the license.
Yep. And it's amazing. You talk about that LCG era, how much IP it was. So they released the Arkham Horror LCG, which still survives to this day and it looks like the best thing in their catalog now. Maybe not. And at the same time,
I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
I bought it for a specific reason, but I lost the social reason to do it. That's another long side story about how to architect a game choice, knowing some of the predilections of the people who are coming to play it. There was a Game of Thrones one, and there were multiple Star Wars deck builders. Then there was the Legend of Five Rings. They had all of that out at once.
I can speak to all of them. It's funny. It's funny. I think the Warhammer Conquest one is the only one I didn't play of the LCGs, because I was so into the LCGs that I would just try them all when they came out.
Really?
Yeah. The only thing, like for some reason, I just didn't have anybody that had the Conquest one. I wanted to try it. I remember even watching like Worlds, and there was a big controversy because the person who ended up winning was caught cheating on camera.
Yep.
And Fantasy Flight made like a ban list, a competitive ban list of players that weren't allowed to come to events moving forward, and it only had their name on it. It was just the one name on it. It's fun to have the notoriety of being the reason that a list is created and then just being the only name on it.
It's got to be an eerie feeling at the airport when you get a peek at the agent's screen and it says terrorist watch list. You.
Yeah, it's just your name. That's the extent of knowledge on Conquest. But like, I don't know if there's one in particular you're curious about, but I can speak to pretty much any of the others.
Loud and clear that Netrunner. It sounds like Netrunner is really your jam, but I'd love to hear you rank or capsulize any of the others you played.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't realize you'd done that many.
I mean, so disclaimer: a lot of these I played one game or two, but so I can speak based on my experience. But I like to put them into like two main categories. There's the Magic likes, and then there's the cooperative ones. The Magic likes, the one that kind of spearheaded and made them able to move forward with things was Game of Thrones. And I remember when I lived in San Diego, Netrunner was just coming out. Most of the Game of Thrones group were the ones that picked up Netrunner and started playing it as well. And Game of Thrones was huge. I believe that the San Diego group were some of the best players in the world at that time, on top of it just being a pretty popular one. Game of Thrones is very interesting because it's Magic, but you fight amongst three different aspects. So it's not just, I attack you, I hit your health. It's very much, I attack you, I progress the game, which is the equivalent of health. I attack you, I manipulate your board, which is removing their units. Or I attack you and I mess with your hand. And so you have to play in all three of those spaces, which is very thematic to Game of Thrones because there's the intrigue game and there's the power game and then the military game. That's what those were analogous to. It is a game that is very thinky. It's like if you're like, Magic is too simple for me, you had to play this like 4D chess to play Game of Thrones. It's also a game that was like very snowbally. Because once one side started winning, you basically knew they were going to win that particular game. Oftentimes in tournaments, people would just scoop and say, let's play the next round. I think it's pretty cool. I do think it had a huge barrier of entry. So like people who are into it, they loved it, but it was kind of hard to get into it after that. That's why I think they printed the second edition, because it was very, very hard at a certain point for people to come in, and they just decided a hard reset. I think they even had different card backs for the second edition. It was like, you can't play with anything that's old. We're just resetting the game. That's my take on Game of Thrones.
I got to play it once, and it was with some people, and you could tell that while they were down to learn Conquest and were crazy good at it because they all had Magic pedigrees, they were also sort of trying to get me to look at other stuff, and I wasn't going to. So, I remember one day after multiple games of Conquest had concluded, they're like, now check this out. And they set out Game of Thrones, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was already tired. And I was like, but one thing I do remember was the breadth and quality of these LCGs, and learning why the LCG format was so important, because it's fair to the players and it's less exploitative.
Yeah.
Conquest was really important for me because I'd always did not want to do the minis. I was still the opinion that my default, if I'm going to buy a game, give me something I can take out of the box and play, please. I don't want to acquire a second prerequisite hobby just to play it. Well, first you have to paint them. Then you go and watch like 3 videos. You're not using your primer or your wash, right? I'm like, oh, well.
Well, for some, that's the fun, it's almost like the game's secondary. So I understand that. But yeah, I'm like you. It's really not something that draws me to it.
I eventually did learn to paint while exploring 5 years ago Kill Team. And I actually realized why there's a whole section of the hobby that they never play the game. They just paint the models. But I don't want to have to do that to play a game. And plus, I didn't realize, especially, I'm slow at this stuff, and I don't like this. Hey, there's a new book out this year you have to buy. And and by the way, your army sucks now.
Yeah, they do love to do that.
And then to me, that just seems another version of the squeeze the fans thing. So despite loving the lore, I was thrilled when Conquest came out, because here was a thematic way to battle without having to do any minis. You deck of 51 cards, you're fighting. And not only that, but I think it was Eric Lang, Brad Andres, and there's a third designer whose name I'm slipping, Nate French, I think. They really did an incredible job translating the battle doctrines of the various factions. And the game was agony for me to learn all the triggering and I just got pummeled. But it was a really important game to have, because everybody from my stepson to a lot of the dudes in the group, A, loved Warhammer lore, B, had all cut their teeth on Magic as teens and then abandoned it for some reason or another. So now they had a way to get into this without doing Magic anymore, and I had a way to fight in the Warhammer universe without models. But the year I picked it up, the game was canceled, and I'm like, but I'm just starting now. Then I was having a pretty good year contracting that year. So there were a lot of players like, no more cards coming out for it, I'm done. And I bought, I think, 3 or 4 whole collections from people. I must have spent $1,500 over the course of a year just buying up collections. I went crazy. So if you want to get into it, I'll send a convoy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be rad.
But I learned it, and all of a sudden, we had a group of anywhere from 4 to 6 people who would sit down and battle. And I think it was the last Fantasy Flight game I really got into, and the last game of any genre or any publisher that I loved that much or played that intensely.
Yep. As is with a lot of those LCGs, yeah.
You also played, you said you got to try 5 Rings?
Yeah, 5 Rings was good. It was in their trend of bringing in games that either had been discontinued or were still in a CCG format and seeing how they would work in the LCG format. I think 5 Rings is a game where you can tell they looked at Magic and they're like, how can we make this better? It doesn't fall into some of the pitfalls that Magic has. The thing that 5 Rings suffers from is not having the same amount of impact and staying power that Magic does, while being very much in the same space. I think that Game of Thrones is different enough that there's a reason to play it for folks who are I want the Magic experience, but I want this. Whereas Five Rings, it felt like Magic but better, and I think that's part of the reason it didn't really take off. I played it and I was like, oh, this is cool. That was my reaction.
There has to be a certain mass and velocity of people who are willing to play for which other board games are depending on, because there's such a commitment, especially your big non-Warhammer miniatures games. There's tons of them, and you have lots of guys out there with lots of pretty minis, and no group, not even in their medium-sized town.
Yeah. If you're the only person playing War Machine or Malifaux in your particular area, then you have a bunch of minis that you can stare at and longingly wish for a friend. That's the unfortunate thing. It's like a huge investment, and so if you don't have that buy-in, it's very hard to get going. Everybody's always like, don't design a collectible card game. I mean, don't design a minis games. That's even more dangerous.
I think that's another plus for the COVID era rise of solo mode is not just a tack on, but sometimes the reason for the game, or a very well integrated solo mode, because hell, I can go out there now, Exhibit A, SETI sitting right on, and I can buy almost any popular title, and it doesn't matter if I don't have any friends.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a great thing about solo gaming. I also am a big fan of solo gaming. Speaking of, the other type of LCG that was big and that still persists is the cooperative/solo LCG. The first one of these was Lord of the Rings, and it was an experiment at the time, and it was a very successful one. I think they did tons and tons of expansions for this. The nice thing with this one is that it was almost like reading a book. You could pick up the next pack, and you had a new quest and also new cards you could add to your decks to try and complete that quest. And you were experiencing different aspects of the Lord of the Rings universe, some within the books, some kind of auxiliary and just part of the world building. People got hooked on this one. They played by themselves, or they played, as like a returning group, kind of like a D&D session. And it spawned a number of other ones. I mean, the Arkham Horror card game came out of this. It's a very similar formula. We also have Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions is less narrative based.
That one was really well regarded.
Yeah, it's still going. That one's more of a mix and match. Like, there's less of a narrative structure, with the exception of some of the bigger boxes. And it's more like, oh, I want to fight the Red Skull using these two heroes kind of thing. And then more recently, this is not an FFG game, but it's the spiritual successor. I haven't played this one, but Earthborn Rangers is the same model too. A lot of the designers that worked on Arkham Horror card game and Lord of the Rings card game worked on Earthborn, and they kind of created Earthborn Studios as a spinoff. So that one has some of the structure too, while also evolving it and creating more of a narrative flow in terms of how cards come in and out of the story. So
I read, or not read, more like watched a lot of buzz about Earthborn Rangers when it came out, but I didn't realize that was part of its design pedigree. I bought the base set and a couple of the expansions because that was another thing that my buddy showed me Netrunner was into. He sat me down to my first game of Arkham Horror. I was like, this is kind of cool. I don't know how much of this will keep, but there's one funny story. They were part of my Conquest group. And they also sat me down to Arkham Horror LCG, and they had all their own hacks for playing it. Like, they had a collection of sticks that they used to lay over the cards on the table to show you like the physical path between cards. And
oh, that's cool.
They were a couple. And one day I showed them, I got it, and I showed them like the sets in the box, and it came in like a couple of paramedics with a dying patient, and they had a box set up just to organize my cards along with tabs. And they said, no, you want this here, here, here. And they both sat there with all my cards saying, it's really weird to try to hunt for stuff with the symbol. Do this. They compacted everything I had down to one box organized with tabs. And there it sat. Arkham Horror, I bought, played. I thought, oh, I can make a second career of this. And it just didn't happen. I think there was part of the 40 games I unloaded to a neighbor here. So I just looking at it, I'm like, I think this window's closed, which made me kind of sad, because I think it's a cool system, and it's evidenced by the fact that people still love it, and it's still going.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent system, and it's very modular. I think that's part of the reason it's kind of resonated with people.
Outside of the LG, God, I'm going to try that again. Cement in my tongue.
Well, before we go away, there is one we haven't talked about that I do want to put 2 cents in for.
The floor is yours, man.
Eric Lang, excellent, talented designer. He does have some duds. And even though he worked on a lot of these, one of the ones that he worked on was the Star Wars LCG, not to be confused with a lot of the other Star Wars collectible games that were made by FFG. This is one of the worst games I've ever played.
Really?
Not even just worst LCG. I think it's the worst LCG I played, but there's a mechanic in a lot of these card battling where you can make a card unable to be used for multiple turns. In Magic, it's called stun. Basically, a card gets tapped and it can't be untapped on your next turn. Star Wars, the LCG, was a game that was asymmetrical in the sense that you had to play good versus bad, but the bad side had all the stun mechanics. So imagine you're playing a game and one side can just make you not able to play the game. You have all your cool Star Wars characters from across the IP, and they're just permanently tapped because every time it's the opponent's turn, they just make them more tapped for more turns. It was like a key aspect of the game that the dark side could just perpetually do. It didn't mean that they always won. I think the game was, not necessarily balanced, but at least it was like playable where both sides were in a good spot. But it was just so unpleasant to, and you didn't even feel good when you were playing the dark side. You would have to like apologize to the person, like, I'm so sorry. Like, you can't play the game.
Yeah, here's the part where you don't play again.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure there are people listening to this who are like, oh yeah, but they balanced this later on with this thing that came out. I'm talking just core set out of the box. It was nonstop. My characters are all asleep city. Like, that's what it felt like. And it's kind of unfortunate because I'm not opposed to powerful abilities. I am opposed to ones that make a person not able to really express themselves or play the game. And it just felt like that was a core tenet of the game. And so for that reason, I was very much out.
There's all kinds of sneaky mechanics and subtle things you do to sort of squeeze people's options, make them run out of money, make it so they can maybe get cards but not afford to deploy them and all
Right.
that stuff. But I could see. Well, and also I can't even keep all those games straight because didn't they just within the last year put out another Star Wars theme head-to-head?
Yep. So as far as card games are concerned, they had Star Wars the LCG, and then way later they did Star Wars Destiny, which was a game that combined cards and these very thick dice that had pictures on them, which was pretty good, by the way. And then just like last year, or maybe the year before, they came out with Star Wars Unlimited as kind of a competitor alongside Lorcana. Star Wars Unlimited is even more similar to Magic than like the Star Wars LCG was. It fixes a few of the problems with Magic, but it's there to be a competitor in the market. And it's a solid game. I don't think it does anything breathtaking. I don't, it didn't make me go, huh, at any moment, like a fun, huh. But it's well designed. It plays well. It's got all your favorite, Darth Vader's there. Luke Skywalker's there. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very much like I like Star Wars, but I'm not passionate about it. Like, it's a good game.
No, I actually, despite having seen most of the movies and think most of them are actually fine, kind of repelled by it to the point because it's just so culturally ubiquitous and it's so everywhere that it gets a little suffocating. It's one of the reasons, I kind of gravitated to Warhammer 40,000 because I don't know, there's just there has that ugly cousin thing going for it. It's not utopian. It's incredibly cynical. It's nonstop slaughter. There's no press a button and go hyperspace. You actually have to use blinded slaves to guide your ship through hell to get where you're going. It's just so absolutely metal that it just repels a lot of people. But I'm with you. Star Wars in and of itself doesn't attract me as a tabletop thing, and I don't think without Conquest invitation of being able to do that kind of game with that lore I liked, I don't think I'd have played any of the LCGs. Although it's funny, I did buy one Fantasy Flight game a couple of years ago, and it was from the first Fantasy Flight designer I ever got a game from, Corey Koneska.
Oh.
And I did, despite the IP, not because of it, I bought Star Wars Outer Rim because
nice.
I just wanted a solo adventure game that was a big sandbox to play around in. It looked well produced. It seemed well regarded, so I got it.
Very cool.
And then there's a point at which the characters become they acquire a different sort of skin or a different sort of meaning once the action of the play and the theater of the game feel like they're yours. But yeah, I'm with you.
Very much so. Yeah.
The Star Wars IP is not an attractor in and of itself. Oh, by the way, so before we jump, if there's anything else you want to talk about their LCGs, I didn't realize before we got on you were so well traveled in this one.
I think we covered most of it. I don't think we got each one, but I'm failing to remember the ones that were missing. Yeah, I was obsessed with these for a little bit because to me, the appeal of being able to still customize a deck, but not feeling the paralysis that comes with a huge card pool and those random packs. It was like perfect for me. I love that format.
I want to thank Kenny again for making the time. And once again, give Shelf Stable a listen. It'll be worth every moment. More excerpts from this talk are going to be included in my long and metastasizing post about the Fantasy Flight Golden Era as I experienced it. It also features audio from my long talk with board game reviewer Matt Thrower, and you're going to hear more from Kenny as we cover more titles from more angles. Thanks again. Next up, track of the week.
Bitch, I kicked it, yup, I kicked it. Come on, you couldn't bang with this if your name was Genghis Khan.
If you've noticed the Union Jack flying over more track of the week picks in the last few months, it's no accident. I'm learning more all the time about the parallel hip-hop universe that was happening across the pond while I was wearing out my U.S. Golden Era cassettes. To get a better vantage, I reached out to my pal Tim Sismey. Talk music sometimes on LinkedIn. He's a gent and a real crate digger, so I invited him to show me more UK hip-hop that I missed. He showed me a lot of tracks. They were all good, but there was one in particular I wanted to show you. Here's Tim and I talking about my hands-down favorite from his list, Cordless Mics at 20 Paces by DJ Skitz featuring Phi-Life Cypher from his 2001 album, Countryman. I want to say how awesome it is to be talking to one of the 3 people in the world who make LinkedIn even worth going to.
Oh, thank you very much. No, great. Yeah, likewise. I'm glad that we can make this work.
This is going to be an especially long and self-indulgent track of the week because we have none other here than one of my favorite people from LinkedIn, Tim Sismey, who's not only a stellar human being, but also provides a great backstop for my career as a listener because Tim is well-versed in a lot of the same kinds of hip-hop I like. And we were talking on LinkedIn. I invited Tim to pick a track of the week. So Tim, hello and thank you. And if you like, I'm just going to let you hold forth on what you picked and why.
So it was fun trying to choose the track, actually, because it made me dive into some of the stuff on my shelves that I've not listened to for a while. I've installed a turntable in this little room that I use as an office just recently, and there's a load of vinyl that I hadn't listened to for a little while, so I was pulling out bits and pieces and found the 12-inch of Cordless Mics at 20 Paces by DJ Skitz featuring Phi-Life Cypher. That was something I'd not thought about for a really long time. I think it's like 2000, 2001, something like that. I hadn't thought about that track for a really long time. And it's a really great combination for me of the production's amazing, the cuts are amazing, Phi-Life Cypher are absolutely indescribable. I know that I was familiar with them before they performed with Gorillaz, because there's a version of Gorillaz Clint Eastwood. Apparently the original version of Gorillaz Clint Eastwood actually had Phi-Life on it rather than Del the Funky Homo Sapien. And they re-recorded an alternate version with Del, and that became the single.
Oh.
Apparently. So the Phi-Life version then got released as they did an EP of sort of alternate cuts called G-Sides. So in a former life, I had a music industry adjacent job. I was a technical person for the department that compiled the music and video charts, the kind of UK version of SoundScan. We used to get to go to award dues and bits and pieces like that, and so we'd go to the Brit Awards every year. And 2002, Gorillaz performed Clint Eastwood on stage with like the big video screens and everything. And the bit where we were all expecting it to be the Del verse, Phi-Life Cypher song just burst out from behind these screens and tore the place to pieces, which was just the coolest thing, because, you know, it was primetime TV. It's a big music industry event. You've got to know, you had to know your stuff to know who they were. It was a great moment. It was a great moment. And so I thought I'd throw that in and see if that floated your boat.
Oh boy. The short story it was absolute catnip. And, you know, I think one part of this, and again, we're talking about a track from a DJ Skitz album, who before Tim recommended it, I did not know anything about. And I've listened to the whole album since. And I think this album was 2001.
I think so.
Or thereabouts. The album's called Countryman. The song is called Cordless Mics at 20 Paces. And Tim suggested a whole passel of songs, but there's one criterion for what works, and that is which one do you wake up thinking about and play 7 times the next day. And that
So the rappers are Phi-Life Cypher, so that's Cy-Philly and MC Life, known for like this fast delivery style, multiple internal rhymes, just relentless delivery.
I spat many raps on many tracks, and most rappers be smoking them. When I launch rhymes on mics, I start smoking them like opium. Your thoughts, I be provoking them. Brain cells, I will open them, leaving other rappers paranoid like my metaphors got coke in them. I spit vapor gases of rappers, my skills be choking them. Feel like we rain on MCs, don't stop until we're soaking them, insulting them. Supernatural verses, we be quoting them. My mind shines when I rhyme like my brain cells, I got gold in them. Amazing rhyme writers, fish fighters, and battle snipers. Prepared to die for the cause like some Shiite Muslim fighters. In
my, museum of hip hop in my brain, after hearing, I'm fairly convinced that in the UK wing of that museum is a special dedicated case for this track with the called "Rapping Your Ass Off." Those guys rap their ass off. It sounds like it's just one guy doing a massive verse came out in the 80s. So on my radar. But you know, this is interesting. You can love hip hop in the US and grow up and listen to a lot of it and still know almost nothing about the breadth of the UK firmament, how many people were in it, or what the relation is to each other. So some of this stuff is like all brand new to me, but my recent listening, which sort of kicked off the angle for your suggestion, was my recent discovery of a 2006 set that Herbalizer did at Fabric in London.
Oh, right. Nice.
All winter. And so that was sort of recent. And I remember every new boisterous English accent on that was almost completely new to me. And you can love hip hop, listen to a lot of hip hop, and still have
the way you sit in the scene. I think I'm kind of similar. I was far more at this kind of time that we're talking about. I was probably a little bit more steeped in things. I was all night with a couple of friends, and so we were, you know, there's a lot of crate digging. There was a lot of pulling stuff out for that, and it was kind of that was a period when I was very hip hop. I bounced around over time from being sort of post-punk, hardcore. Then I'll have a period of like being a rap guy, and then sort of bounce around a little bit more. But this was right in the middle of my, like, I was just listening to a lot of hip hop and a lot of UK hip hop, because other things, mind you, you know, I there was a hip hop more generally for me I've called on, because as soon as it's not the boom bap anymore, then I've started to kind of like, I'm not that interested. So, so 90s through to kind of like mid late noughties is my sweet spot. And then every time I find something that's actually got a break and not just like hissy.
Early and speaking that, so excuse me, aside from the top shelf performances that this crew gives on the DJ Skitz album, there's things I really liked about it. One, it with the simple walking down the street at high noon with your ready to throw down, with the guitar, and maybe the summer before last, more violent version of that from some indie ill white boy rappers from Canarsie, Brooklyn. Necro and his brother Ill Bill, they did their own Western thing, and which some of the lines you shouldn't listen to too closely, but specifically a tempo, and so I love the tumbleweeds down the street of a Western, except the streets are about to be filled with the bodies of sucker MCs. and secondly, and this is a very strange thing to home in on, but do you know what hooked me my first 3 plays? It was what Skitz did with the bass on this track.
Yeah, it's got that kind of filter, and it sits really sort of. It's got a really different quality to that guitar sample and the whatever it is, I don't know, some kind of wind instrument, isn't it, that's going on as well, or an organ or something,
harmonica or something.
Maybe, yeah.
But the first 5 times I listened to it, that bass sound he picks, and the simple melody is so satisfying, and in my case, so addictive. And I don't know what effects he's using on it, but the way it simultaneously anchors the track and just punches through when it does the notes of the simple melody to come in really dense pulses, and the way he finessed that sound, I just wanted to listen to his, but it seems like the compact candy kind of bass that was the first thing. And I found with a lot of stuff I can revisit when I was wearing tapes out in the 80s and realize sometimes even when the bars sound dated, the production still stands up, and I'm not saying that's true with this, but the first thing that got was that bass that Skitz used.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing here, but there's a lot of reggae influence in a lot of his production, and I think that bass sound probably has a bit of influence from that as well. Sort of like that kind of dub bass kind of sort of window shaking sort of feel to it.
I'm scared to play this. My flows kill at high speed like ladies' eyes Mercedes. Your diet death is painful, torturous, and agonizing. When it's hypnotizing, vocal verbal, it starts verbalizing. My skills are enterprising, my status rapidly rising. Rap careers I'm neutralizing, life I'm striking like I'm lightning. Don't need a movie screen to see events over the horizon. In the future I'll be running things on the mic, it's not surprising. I'm metamorphosizing, disguise when I'm cannibalizing. Demoralizing the spies and I'm leaving them caramelizing. Like blow torches, my spit skills are scorching your whole fortress. You fighting us is like Stoders having races with Porsches. I spit raps just to
So Tim came armed prior to this talk, like I said before, with a whole raft of tracks, all of them top shelf. He ties the audio from a playable magazine cover that had a version of Bomb the Bass's Mega Blast that I'd never heard. Top marks, Tim. I'll be adding that playlist to Breakup Gaming Society's YouTube channel in the future, along with other excerpts from my long chat with this excellent UK hip-hop docent. Or is it docent? Not looking it up. We've reached the end of episode 112. If you value what I'm doing here, hit the donate page at breakupgamingsociety.com and see the one-of-a-kind stuff I put in the mail for people who support the show. Yesterday, I finished a second run-through of SETI, decided to let the space on my work table breathe for a bit. All the planets and boards and tokens are packed away. Final girl, knock at the door, sits there now, waiting to beguile me with its 3 killers, its improvised weapons, its befuddled victims, and sweaty trills of misfortune. Until that happy day, I remain your host and friend, the Colonel Hector Bravado in Starkville, Colorado. May you fight long and well.